you can watch this interview if you go to the Virgin Radio app. If you don't have it, download it and press watch live, and you can see Sir Bob Geldof. Sorry, Tills, I've introduced you. Sorry. Over to you. I apologise.
The Boomtown Rats have been changing the world with their music for 50 years, and they may not like Mondays, but we're really going to like this Friday when they release the first 50 years songs of Boomtown Glory. And here to tell us all about it, let's have a face-off with Sir Bob Geldof!
All right, Bob's in the building!
Please notice.
I think we can just do a half an hour version of the 4-minute chat we had, because that's the headlines of the year. Great year for you this year.
It's been amazing. Sort of anniversary year. It all comes to a head. The Band-Aid stuff is nuts everywhere, so you've got to keep talking about that because it's still live and active. This morning I got up early for you and opened up, and there's 12 emails again from the horror lands around the world, and the Rats, and who'd have thought? I mean, people say, what do you think? What I think is that how odd it was yesterday that these 6 Herberts from South Dublin just wanted something to do on a Friday night in the back of my flat, and I was able to make my life in music. That's wild and unbelievable.
Yeah, you are blessed, and I know you're blessed. It's amazing, and the fact that the anniversary of Live Aid was this year, the 40th anniversary. That's brought a different energy to this year for you. Yeah. You've been sort of riding that rainbow, not in a sort of an exploitational point of view, but you can't not feed off that energy, can you?
No, and it's a wild energy. It's a different energy. If you go to the, you had in Craig, who plays me in the musical Just for One Day in the West End, which is about all of that, and I'm watching that, and at this point now, I'm not watching me, I'm watching a character. I heard you earlier talking to Davina about that, about separating yourself out into being the pop singer, and then the guy just has a life. And so you're watching that literally, and then you come along to the 4 hours on the BBC, the 3 hours on CNN in America, and you have to deal with it. You're dealing with the public response to that, and it's all public. And then you go to Carfest, and it's a completely different experience, and the Rats are banging it home this year.
Tell us a story about the 3 stages.
Of what? Okay, so we were in Wacken.
This is so funny.
This is Wacken. Wacken is outside of Hamburg, and it's a giant rock festival, and most of the audience have had horns literally inserted into their heads, that thing, but they're the sweetest people. I mean, I don't, seriously, you're frightened. Anyway, there's 3 stages: faster, harder, louder, and the Rats were on harder and Guns N' Roses were on faster, and they kept annoying me. I kept hearing Guns N' Roses off in another part of the field, and you're looking at 100,000 people in front of you, and you're in the space. You're in, as you said, Bobby, Boomtown mode, and they kept annoying me, Guns N' Roses. I kept hearing them, but I also kept seeing, Evans, people drifting over to our stage. So at one point I stopped and said, "Yeah, they're crap, aren't they?" And we did get the reviews, it has to be said.
So who was on louder if you were on harder and Guns N' Roses were on faster?
I don't know. It would have been some Icelandic, Viking type of. Oh!
Yeah, no amplification required,
Death,
just all the drums. But you were great at Carfest. I've seen you loads of times before. I've been fortunate to know you forever. You really were in the zone. You were in the mood. It's been a great year, as I say. 74 years young. You're up there, and you were giving it all the beans. How does it feel to be up there? What's it like the day before? How long do you have to rest for afterwards? How different is it now to 50 years ago? The brand new album is called The First 50 Years. Here's to the next 50, literally. And I'm not betting against you, by the way. Just give us all that, please.
Well, we had to do the chat with you and Rob and on the hay bales, and I called your guy and I said, "Listen, I need to have a nap." I'm serious. And he said, "Come on, Bob." I said, "No, seriously, I need a nap before we do the thing." So you kindly moved it to a different time slot to allow for Bobby Boomtown to get in gear, and I can talk to you. In fact, I'm not sure we weren't talking just like this just before I go on stage. And then that band starts. And this sounds really corny to people watching or listening to this, and you've probably heard it 1,000 times. But whatever it is, I go into a different place, and it's deeply exciting, and it's a catharsis, because you were talking earlier, those of you who just come in, you talked to Davina and others about how there has to be a separation. Stardom is a silly thing. It's a very facile thing. It's not real. It's something to be negotiated, and it's not how you live your life. You've got the kids, you've got the missus, you've got the bills. Everybody has, and it doesn't matter what level of those bills are at. And but when you're there on the stage, and there were that festival has got huge. I couldn't believe the size of your gig this time around. I keep saying to people, it's just monstrous now, and you're moving to Silverstone, so it gets bigger.
Oh, by the way, we'd like you to come back next year.
Oh, thanks. And you go on, and the band starts, and really you are lost, and the thrill of it is the catharsis that you're allowed to break free out of the everyday, and you're not thinking for a second about anything else save your body and mind moving to this otherness. I know that sounds really crap, but I try to describe it.
Because you said you're lost, but actually you're not. You're found. You're lost and found. And you realise that the real sort of sequence of events, or the real order of life, is the other way around. You are found when you're Bobby Boomtown, because you're in the middle of who you really want to be and your true nature.
Yeah,
and then you spend the rest of the day dealing with all the other stuff.
It certainly needs to come out. Afterwards, it's so... the next day my body's loose. It's really loose, and my mind is freer.
Are you tired, or are you energised?
No, I'm energised by it, and it's not you're lost. I mean, everyone who goes to a gig and they see the singer looking and just laughing at you, or just acknowledging you, the individual. I mean, there were people at the Carfest, shouting up, and I'd respond back to them. You're deeply in the moment, whatever that moment is. And I was aware of you lurking over. He's such a bad dancer, and he was over at the side.
I don't care.
I know. That's the point. You really don't care when you're there. And unfortunately, as you know, whether it's your show or on things, I'll say things on stage that I have to try to explain to myself afterwards, or apologise for, or whatever. But it's been 50 years of that. And, when I think that, we got off the boat and came to London, and we all lived in one house on the very edges of London in Chessington, and woke up properly seriously with camels looking over the fence and the roar of lions, because we were quite literally next door to Chessington Zoo. And, there was the Clash and the Pistols and the Ramones, and they were just starting. And our first gigs were with the Talking Heads and the Ramones from New York, and we played in schools at 4:30 in the afternoon. Can you imagine that? And these kids picking their noses in the gym in sort of post-rollers, Bay City Rollers outfits. And to be part of that massive cultural, what we now know was a seriously important cultural revolution.
It was an earthquake, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
A tsunami.
I didn't think it was great then. I was so anxious. I mean, I was walking down the King's Road, the legendary King's Road that the Rolling Stones came out of, etc., etc. And I heard this song coming out of HMV Records. And I walked in, I said, "What's that?" And they said, "It's the Sex Pistols' first single." And I just thought, ours hadn't come out. Ours was coming out in a month. And I just thought, oh, we're done. This is just too good. This is so excellent. And to go through that and then the rest of it, it's amazing.
So you heard, the first time you heard the Sex Pistols was emanating from HMV on the King's Road, which basically was was Sex Pistols Street.
It was, and so the Clash as well, coming out of the Shop Boy.
I thought you were going to say the Clash, I've got to be honest. When you started describing that story, I thought he's going to say the Clash here with the Sex Pistols.
And the Pistols came out of just down the road in Vivian Westwood and Malcolm McLaren shop, Sex, and then fast forward a couple of years to Anthony Price's shop between them, and you get Duran Duran, and you get all those coming out. So, and
what a scene, man.
Yeah, it was. And it's great. As we know, the music, all of that music has lasted. You know, it's fantastic.
So we celebrating this album, 27 tracks the first 50 years.
Yep.
From the 27 tracks, by the way, the Boomtown Rats have recorded many, many more than 27 tracks. But from these 27, your sort of choice bunch, your choice 27 tracks, what do you think the best, least known one might be? Because we've got them all to play.
25 of them, Chris. They were picked by...
Not true, by the way.
We went online and said, what are your favourite tracks? And got an online poll. And then we went through and said, no, we don't like that one, so that's going off. I think the least known ones would be, of course, ones off albums that fans picked that really liked.
Like what, for example?
I don't know, because I can't really remember
Diamond
what's
Smiles, When the Night Comes, Banana Republic, we all know, Trash Glam Baby, Elephant's Graveyard.
Elephant's Graveyard, probably. That was a single. And
Monster Monkeys.
Monster Monkeys is a really good track, but that's off Citizens of Boomtown, the last thing we did, and that's the one talking, as you've spent the morning depressing the whole nation, talking about death with Davina. That's the album you can put in my
Death with Davina.
Yeah, really.
Talking of death, tell us about last night. Tell us about your one of your band members, what they've been through over the last 7 weeks.
What's really weird is to sit around with these guys who they're just there, like they have been for your entire life. 50 years with the same blokes, buses, cars, planes, boats, hotels, stage, these people. And so there's nothing to say anymore, and it's just felt and understood. We all went to Spinal Tap down in Truro. We did the festival down there at the weekend, and all of us go to Spinal Tap, and of course, like every band, we are Spinal Tap. Went with the crew. We were all of us screaming, laughing. The rest of the audience in the cinema going, what's going on?
Were you in the cinema watching Spinal Tap?
Yeah.
What? Can you imagine buying a ticket for that night going, who are those guys? Apparently it's the Boomtown Rats. First of all, sorry, pause. Yeah. Tell us about that. Tell us about the things you recognised and you were sympathetic to in that movie.
The hair. From old guys, trying to keep the hair together.
Got to keep the hair together.
Yeah, and the relationship really well done. It's not as good as one, because it can't be. As one reviewer said,
piece.
Arguably one of the funniest films of all time. Not arguably, actually one of the funniest films of all. Will they have, the lines that everybody says, too much perspective? Will they have all that? Yes, there's a couple. Too many star turns. Paul's in it, Elton's in it. Quite long pieces, really good, both of them. Lars from Metallica is in it, because they're trying to find a drummer, and no drummer wants the job, of course. But is it great? Of course it's great.
Now back to your pal, so go on.
Yeah, so I was sitting at the table, and we were going to do our track, and Roger Taylor did the big up for me, and it was great, and I then didn't know what I was going to say.
Sorry, this is at the Sky Arts Awards last night.
Live, yes, Sky Arts Awards. I got the Lifetime Achievement, which I'm very proud of, and I was standing there. What did I say? What did I say about the Rats? And I just thought, here's these men I've lived my entire life through and with. And we've been through lots, because you go through their personal lives through. And Simon, the drummer, was there. And 7 weeks ago, this is less to do with Simon than the time we live in. 7 weeks ago, he had this massive tumour in his brain. And they opened, this is, again, sort of winging off Davina, really. They opened up his head, and for 7 hours, he was woken up and asked to say his name. Was he responding to this? His head is open. His brain is there. They're scraping out this filth from his head. And he's been asked, what's your name? Speak to me. Because if a nurse so much as slightly bumped the surgeon, then there goes his speech. There goes his mobility. So he's there. They stitch him up. He had this huge horseshoe stitching around his head. They would have loved it at Wacken, at the festival. And he was determined that he would be there last night and play. So he spent the last 7 weeks. He stayed in my place during the operation, and on the second day, I went downstairs and said, "How do you feel?" He goes, "It's really weird." He said, my mind's weird. And he said, "And I've got this headache." I said, "Crow, your brain was on an operating table 24 hours ago. You're moaning about a headache," And he played last night, and it was fantastic. And he was fantastic because he's a great drummer. But afterwards, he was so buzzing. Now that's a 50-year trip.
Well, I mean, on top of everything else that's gone on this year, to go to Sky Arts, to have Roger Taylor speak to your career with all the love, all the affection, all the honesty, all the wit, all the intelligence, and then to get your band, who are still together after all these years, on the eve of this amazing 27-track greatest hits album, and then that story comes with you. It's all. I mean, it's written in the stars. This year's some kind of year for you, Bob.
I know it is, and it's exhausting. But thrilling, and I'm not saying it because it's you, and we literally have known each other, parallel lives almost, but it's only when you talk to you, like anyone listening, it's a life lived. You're living a life, and I'm 74 in a couple of weeks. And it's only when I see Bob Geldof _74, or indeed, as somebody showed me a photograph of me and Taylor last night, that you go, I'm really old. And so I'll go back. So here's my plan for the last roundup. I don't want to be in the ground. I don't want worms and damp. I don't want to be just shoved into the pizza oven. So what I want is sooty, like the Hindu thing. So I'm going to collect dozens of pallets. And I know you're not meant to. I know it's illegal, but I'm dead. And I'm going to stack them up really high because I need to burn properly. And I've told the people responsible to put ladders up so they can get me up there in, one of these wicker things. They're just a shroud or whatever. And everyone gathers round, barbecue time. I've got the tracks already and it's loud. And this is all happening in my garden. And everyone will have gone home by the time I'm now ash and bones. And anyone who wants a relic, they can pick the bones out because they'll still be there. But then scoop it up a day later when it cools. I've bought a monkey puzzle tree, Evans, and you dig the hole and you put the ashes and a couple of the bones in the bowl of the hole and you plant the monkey tree, puzzle tree. It's slow growing. 30 years it'll get to full height, very high. But when my grandchildren and children look out the window of the house, there I'll be, still upright, still spiky, still dancing.
Rats to monkeys. Love it, man. Love it. See, that's what Davina's book needs to be about, isn't it?
It also needs to be about men and birth. McCall, I think you and I, this is where we need to go.
We need to write a book.
I don't want to be in the room. Can I be clear? Can I speak for a huge number of men? Mm-hmm. You're useless. There's nothing you can do. You're getting in the way of the doctors and nurses. Your missus is there grunting and in pain, and you can do nothing. This person that you adore, you can do nothing to help. And next minute out comes this thing that's all bloody and you're supposed to go, isn't it cute? And you're going, oh my God. And then all the life ahead. And you do feel this overwhelming sense of protection. And you start staring at the doctors. Don't mess with these people anymore. I want to be outside, classically pacing up and down with all the Asian dudes who are all outside giving birth, and they're there and they're outside having fags and they're saying, what did you get? I got a boy, I got a girl. And it's hilarious. The men's experience of birth needs to be articulated and written on.
Work in progress. So Davina's books are Menopausing was the last one, worldwide blockbuster.
Yeah.
The current one is Birthing. She's definitely going to do Dying. What about banding? What about tips or a book on how to be in a band for 50 years and still be with the same guys after 50 years? Any super hacks that have kept you together for 50 years? Has it always been good?
What happened in Live Aid is that the Rats contract bizarrely ended a week before Live Aid, but because Band Aid it wasn't a consume me. I had to focus. If I'd asked people to come to the party, I had to be the guy that did exactly what I said I'd do. And so the Rats were in abeyance for 2 years. And after 2 years, I was bust because I hadn't been able to make any money and there were serious bills to pay. So when I had a chance to sit back and look around, what do I do? The Rats contract was out for 2 years. I hadn't had time to do it. And so the guys had to go and do other work, other jobs. So when after 2 years I looked around, really the band didn't exist. And I then started doing solo records, which thank you very much did very well. But that was fine. But inevitably this thing that you've articulated that I need to do came back. The solo thing is about a much more introspective type stuff, and the Boomtown Rats is just really the animus is anger and rage, and it comes from being boys in Ireland at a time when Ireland offered you nothing. The only job it could offer me was a job in a slaughterhouse, which is where I wrote the song Rat Trap, but I didn't know it was going to be a song. I didn't know it would be the first ever Irish #1 in the UK or the first ever new wave in the UK, but it was. And there was a documentary the BBC did called Citizens of Boomtown, which they showed about 4 times. And I really then understood us. So 6 guys, none of us had a family, none. So 4 of us were packed off to boarding school very young. So no real sense of a family, but a sense of just being in a group. Jerry left around album 4, and what he does now is he's the guy you go to if you want animals in a movie. He trains nearly every single movie you see. That's Jerry Cott. He went and trained animals and made a fortune doing it. Jerry, I never knew this until a couple of years ago at the documentary, that he came from a very abusive family to the point that one of his brothers, and possibly 2, committed suicide. He never said one word. We lived together in this house in Chestnut with his wife. He never said a thing about it, but it probably animated his guitar playing, which was excellent. I didn't have a family because my mum died when I was young, 7. And my dad went away on Monday and came back on Friday because the only job he could get was being a commercial traveller. So we didn't have a relationship. My 2 older sisters, they didn't want to be surrogate mums. So we kind of brought ourselves up. None of us had a family. Nor did we feel when we came together that we were a natural fit. We were just guys who could play stuff. But there was this inchoate rage that really powered the sound of the band, especially Gary, and what B.P. Fallon, Led Zeppelin's publicist, and Mark Bolan's publicist called the vulgarity of his playing. It was very, very raw. And our first ever television show was Mark Bolan's afternoon TV show. And that's what powered the band, and that's what kept them together. This shared nothing that we were determined to escape from. We just had to get out of the circumstances we found ourselves in personally and the country that we were in. It's changed. We changed. Ireland changed, became a completely modern country to the point now where I'm very proud where the national broadcaster refuses to participate in Eurovision. If Israel is allowed into the Eurovision Song Contest, it's a deeply contemporary thinking state, but it wasn't. It was utterly societally corrupt.
So blood is thicker than water, but shared adversity might be even thicker than blood.
I mean, yes, I think so. I mean, you're giddy with life. now.
I can't help
you
it.
know, but when, you know, you were a pain really when you were making it, and when you made it, you were impossible. And we worked with you, and then saw you go off and do your thing, self-destruct, and then get a grip. And it's the trajectory of anyone with the crappiest job listening now knows exactly what we're talking about, because the downs of life, you know, and you come through it, and it doesn't give you focus. I linger on the much advertised awful parts of my life, the saddest parts. They won't go away, but I can use them. And so, to your point, at Carfest, at your gig, that's the thing that I need to get rid of, not consciously, but on stage with that band, that music, that propellant allows me to, for that couple of hours, go free.
Mate, what a chat. We've never had a chat like this before. Brilliant. Val says, newly qualified designer working on the King's Road in 1977, the same time as Bob. It truly was crazily magical, and the memories are burned in my mind 50 years on. Morning, Chris and the team. My daughter Rosie, who's 10 years old, it's a new favourite song after seeing you at Carfest. I Don't Like Mondays. We sang it all the way home from Michael in Ho. Stephen Devon followed Boomtown Rats since the start. I went to see them, and seeing them live is unbelievable. So many times. I love the whole back catalogue of hits. Can't wait for the album on Friday. Ross in Mossley, seeing Bob Geldof from the Boomtown Rats at Carfest, one of the highlights of the weekend. Goes on. Mazzy, I love seeing Bob at Carfest. Unbelievable. Please come next year if you can. If you're gigging.
Yeah, come to the gig. Listen. Hammersmith Odeon.
Oh, it's all here.
October 31st. Quite literally the 50th birthday of the Boomtown Rats.
What a year. 50th birthday of the Boomtown Rats. 40th
From
year
a classroom in a Polytech on Halloween night 1975 to Hammersmith Odeon. You got to be there.
Mate, I'm there.
On tour.
Done deal. The tour is boomtownratsofficial.com. Tickets still available, I think. I'm not quite sure. Nottingham, Birmingham, Aberdeen, Glasgow, Sheffield, Cambridge, London, Southampton, Manchester, Gateshead, York, Liverpool. 10th of October till the 15th of November. Let's hear it for the one, the only Sir Bob Geldof. Yes.